Tonight, a little-known cemetery in Daphne is now known to the world. It's the final resting place of dozens of Civil War era and World War II soldiers, as well as slaves and a few who came to the Gulf Coast on the last known slave trade ship, the Clotilda. An historic marker was placed on this site earlier today, putting it on the National Registry of Historic Sites. Descendants of those buried there say today, on the 80th remembrance of D-Day, was the perfect day to bring national attention to this historic cemetery.
My uncle, my mother's twin brother, was a World War II veteran. And so going to the veterans memorials and touching their names is really personal. This was the same way. Seeing their names there on that plaque and just to be able to touch them and remember them and know, I didn't realize how emotional that would be.
Former U.S. Surgeon General Dr. Regina Benjamin knew she had to be at the Yancey Crane Cemetery today as the historical marker was placed. On the marker, the names of many slaves and soldiers who are buried here in unmarked graves, some of who are Benjamin's relatives.
As I always say, I grew up here. My family has been here since the early 1700s. And looking at this plaque, I can see my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and my great-great-grandparents are buried in this cemetery. And so this is real special to have this plaque dedicated to them. We have such a rich history here.
History the world will now know. The marker was a combined effort to get the cemetery and those who rested in acknowledged by a relative of Amy Greenwood Phillips, a woman who came to this country as a slave on the last known slave trade ship, the Clotilda, a car dealership owner who didn't even know what he had inherited when he bought this property and the city of Daphne.
My grandfather told me about the cemetery, and he said, we got family buried back there. And then I found an article that talked about Amy Greenwood Phillips, which was the descendant, my ancestor that came off the Clotilda. And I went from there, just started digging and not knowing that it was over 200 plus graves that was out there.
When you think about that, you think of the life so many of these people had to endure. It's so sad, and it's just so wonderful that we can recognize them, their sacrifice, and their families and the descendants who are here today.
Descendants like Arnetta Sims, who took today to connect with those relatives who are buried at this site.
And then you arrive at a place of peace that we know where they are. And that's the goodness. So all this has been a wonderful day. I said a little prayer, it was raining so hard, and I called on the ancestors. I said, stand in agreement with me that we can celebrate today. And it's just a good day. And to know that you have accomplished something for the good of all.
Well, Daphne Mayor Robin Lejeune says when folks come to Mobile to learn of the history of the Clotilda and go to the museum, they can now also take a quick trip down the road to visit the cemetery in Daphne.